Sara Jakes, the daughter of globally renowned Jakes, has today become a symbol of strength, transformation, and redemption. But her journey to this place of healing and public respect was anything but smooth. What the world sees now is a confident preacher, an author, and a respected woman of faith. But what they don't often see, or even know, is the heartbreaking story of the girl she once was. Beneath her polished public image lies a deeply emotional and raw past, one filled with personal pain, depression, scandal, shame, and ultimately, the kind of grace that only life's harshest experiences can teach. This is the story of Sara Jakes that few dare to talk about, an unfiltered journey of struggle, mistakes, and survival. Born into the influential Jakes family, Sara was never given the chance to be ordinary. From the moment she could walk, she was expected to be composed, wise, and spotless. Her father, Bishop T.D. Jakes, was quickly rising to global fame as a spiritual leader, best-selling author, and founder of the Potter's House, one of America's largest megachurches. Cameras followed their family. Church members idolized them. To the world, the Jakes household was a place of holiness and perfection. But behind those perfectly curated Sunday images, Sara was slowly drowning under the pressure. She didn't ask to be the daughter of a megastar pastor. She didn't crave the spotlight. And as she entered her teenage years, she felt more like a prisoner to her last name than a beneficiary of it. She was expected to smile, behave, and be better than the rest simply because of who her father was. But nobody stopped to ask how she was actually feeling. In silence, Sara battled depression. The overwhelming weight of having to appear perfect when she felt anything but led her into isolation. Friends didn't understand. Teachers judged her based on her family name. The church whispered behind her back if she wore something a little too trendy. In her own home, despite her parents' love, she often felt invisible. Her father was consumed by ministry. Her mother was holding the household together. And Sara, young, emotional, and uncertain, was trying to make sense of who she was in a world that had already decided her identity for her. At 13 years old, that emotional weight took a dangerous turn. Seeking comfort and attention, she fell into a relationship with a boy who made her feel seen. He wasn't a preacher or a prophet. He didn't care about the cameras or the church crowds. He just listened, and in Sara's emotionally fragile state, that was enough. She didn't have the tools to process what she was feeling. She was just a child trying to escape a life she didn't understand. That one relationship, formed in secrecy and vulnerability, changed her life forever. At just 14 years old, Sara Jakes found herself pregnant. The shock was paralyzing. Her body still looked like a girl's, but now she was carrying a baby. Her emotions were scattered, and fear consumed her every thought. How would she tell her parents? How would the church respond? What would happen to her future? Would she be disowned? Would her father's ministry collapse under the shame? It was the kind of moment that could destroy a person. And for a while, it nearly did. Sara fell deeper into depression. She stopped looking people in the eyes. Her self-worth vanished. All she could hear in her mind was judgment. You ruined everything. You embarrassed your family. You'll never be anything more than a teenage mother. The guilt was suffocating, but the moment of confession came. With tears streaming down her face, Sara sat in front of her parents and told them the truth. She was expecting a baby. What followed was not the rejection she feared, but a powerful, unexpected display of love and grace. T.D. Jakes, the preacher who millions respected as a powerful voice of faith, became a father in the most important way. He embraced his daughter. He held her while she cried. And then he said the words that changed her life forever. You are not a failure. You are not alone. And this is not the end. While many religious families might have responded with anger or disownment, the Jakes household chose compassion. T.D. Jakes didn't hide his daughter. He didn't ship her off in secret. He stood by her publicly. When critics came, he defended her. When the gossip began, he called for grace. In front of his church, he was honest about the pain, but also about the power of redemption. Still, the world wasn't as forgiving. Sara became a public symbol of teenage scandal. Church members judged her. Others pitied her. And although she was surrounded by love at home, the outside world reminded her every day that she had fallen from grace. It was a brutal season, one where she questioned everything, even her faith. Raising a child at 14 isn't just hard, it's almost impossible. While her classmates were choosing outfits for school dances, Sara was learning how to calm a crying newborn at 2 a.m. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, and terrified. She loved her baby deeply, but her own childhood had ended in an instant. There was no roadmap, no step-by-step guide, just a teenage girl holding a baby, hoping the world wouldn't break them both. Her father remained her biggest support. He didn't just preach about grace, he lived it. He hired extra help. He encouraged her to go back to school. He made sure she knew that she still had a future, even if it looked different now. Through his consistent love, Sara began to believe that maybe she wasn't ruined. Maybe there was still hope. It took years, but slowly, she began to rebuild her life. She finished school. She started writing, first privately in journals, then publicly as a speaker. She found healing in words. She poured her pain onto pages. She began to understand that her story, once drenched in shame, could become a testimony. As a young adult, she married for the first time, hoping for stability, but that relationship would later collapse. It was another painful chapter in her journey, one that reminded her that healing is not a one-time event, but a continuous choice. The divorce left her wounded again, but by now, Sara had grown stronger. She was no longer the broken 14-year-old girl. She was becoming a woman who knew her worth. Years later, she met Touré Roberts, a pastor and author in Los Angeles. Their connection wasn't just romantic, it was spiritual. They shared stories of brokenness, of rebuilding, of grace. Their marriage became a fresh start, a testimony of what love can be after trauma. Together, they blended their families, planted ministries, and became a powerhouse couple for modern-day faith leadership. Today, Sara Jakes Roberts is no longer seen through the lens of her past mistake. She's seen as a revolutionary voice in Christianity. Through her sermons, books, and online presence, she speaks directly to the brokenhearted, the ashamed, and the rejected. Her message is simple. You are not your mistake. You are not what people say. You are more. Her conferences sell out arenas. Her books become bestsellers. Her voice reaches millions. And yet, through all the success, she never hides her past. In fact, she leads with it. She tells young women, yes, I was pregnant at 14. Yes, I was depressed. Yes, I felt like giving up. But I didn't. And you don't have to either. Sara's story is heartbreaking, yes, but it is also deeply human and powerfully healing. It reminds the world that pain doesn't have to be permanent, that shame doesn't have to be the end, that love, real, raw, unconditional love, can break any curse. In a society that's quick to cancel, quick to shame, and slow to forgive, Sara Jakes Roberts stands as proof that redemption is real, that grace still matters, and that no matter how bad your beginning was, your ending can be beautiful. Because the girl who once cried in silence is now the woman who speaks with fire. Because the teenager who once feared her future is now leading others toward theirs. Because Sara Jakes' past may be heartbreaking, but her present is nothing short of miraculous. As the final pages of Sara Jakes Roberts' painful beginnings turn, what remains is not a tale of shame, but a legacy of transformation. Her story, once hidden behind stained glass windows and whispered judgment, now echoes in stadiums, church halls, and the hearts of millions who desperately needed to hear, "You're not alone." What makes Sara's journey so powerful isn't just the tragedy of her early years, it's the unrelenting grace that followed. It's the resilience born out of rock bottom. It's the decision to get up one more time when life had every reason to keep her down. Sara Jakes didn't just survive, she evolved. And in that evolution, she became more than a preacher's daughter. She became a pioneer of healing. Today, when people see Sara standing on massive stages, wearing tailored blazers, holding a microphone with unshakable confidence, they're often witnessing the after, the glow-up, the victory. But what they don't always see is the battle behind the brightness, the tear-streaked pillow, the weight of public shame, the sleepless nights wondering if she'd ever be worthy of love again. But it was through those very moments of brokenness that she discovered her true voice. Not the voice shaped by her father's reputation, not the voice trained to please the church, but the authentic, scarred, redeemed voice of a woman who walked through hell and dared to speak from the ashes. Sara doesn't preach from perfection, she preaches from pain. And that's exactly why she's so powerful. Because millions of women and men across the world don't need a perfect saint. They need someone who has been through it. Someone who knows what it's like to feel forgotten, judged, betrayed, or shamed. Someone who's held a baby with shaking hands at 14 and wondered, what happens to me now? Sara's transparency is not weakness, it's warfare. Every time she says, I was depressed or I felt unworthy, she is declaring war on the silence that keeps so many people trapped. Every time she stands on stage and admits her mistakes, she dismantles the false narrative that church people are supposed to be flawless. And perhaps the most beautiful twist of all is this. The very thing the world thought would disqualify her, teenage pregnancy, public failure, emotional collapse, became the platform God used to qualify her. Because if she had never fallen, how would she know how to help others up? If she had never been shamed, how would she teach others to rise above judgment? Her past became her ministry. Her brokenness became her oil. And now, every sermon she preaches is soaked in the anointing of experience. It would have been easy, even expected, for her to stay small, to disappear, to hide in the shadow of her father's fame and pretend her past didn't happen. But Sara chose differently. She chose to own her story, not out of pride, but out of purpose. She didn't bury her pain, she turned it into a bridge. And now thousands walk across it toward healing. And what about her son, the child born from shame, the baby she once feared would ruin her future? He is now part of her legacy, not as a symbol of regret, but as a living, breathing reminder that beauty can be born from broken places, that what begins in fear can end in purpose. Her love for him is fierce, protective, and unapologetic, because he was never the mistake, he was the miracle.